This podcast of the Tailgate Society is sponsored by Revelton Distilling Company. When Rob and Christy Taylor started following the Kentucky Bourbon Trail in 2012, they fell in love with not only bourbon, but the entire distilling process. So they opened Revelton Distillery, where they offer a family of products including vodka, gin, whiskey, and Revelton Shine. Come visit the tasting room at 1400 West Clay Street in Osceola, Iowa, or pick some up at your local Hy-Vee or Fairway grocery store.
This podcast contains material that is intended for mature audiences and may not be suitable for all listeners. Enjoy.
How about, can you give me your address and I'll just mail all this shit to you?
Yeah, it's 1943.
I said your address, not what year you're born, Chris.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin. So let's get rowdy and reckless. Let's get rowdy and reckless. Let's get rowdy and reckless. Just for the hell of it. Just for the hell of it.
Hello, and welcome yet again to another edition of Old Man Strength, a podcast of the Tailgate Society, brought to you by Revelton Distilling Company in Osceola, Iowa. I am Tim Johnson, joined as always by Chris Shipley. Chris, how are we doing this evening?
We're doing all right. I'm healthy. Family's healthy. So saw Rob down at Revelton on Saturday. Had some drinks. Got some exciting news we'll talk about later, but things are good.
Yeah, I'm excited to jump into that. I'm glad you are healthy. I have not been as healthy here as of late. I did get finally, for as much of my health ninja moves of avoiding COVID for the longest time, I finally got bit and was laid up here for a little bit with COVID. I wasn't too bad, but then I also unfortunately had managed to get my daughter sick, so that was not fun. So after a week and a half of the two of us dealing with that, finally out the other side, it really wasn't too bad. You know, we're both vaccinated. I'm boosted. She actually never even bothered, you know, she's 6, but she never even bothered to show signs. But still, man, was not something super fun. And, you know, we hung out at home while she did distance learning from school, but grateful it was not worse, for sure.
Absolutely. On a side note, we should probably take a minute and just acknowledge that somebody from Twitter that's a really big Cyclone fan and is a pretty popular guy, unfortunately passed away today. So I certainly, and I know I speak for Tim and our guests, that we give a shout out and prayers to Nick Bassett and his family. If you need somebody as a model of how to live their life with strength and compassion and never giving up, Nick Bassett would be him.
Yeah, I'm very glad you said something about that, Chris. Nick provided for us a very clear example of how to live life with positivity through a whole lot of things that I don't think I wouldn't have been able to be nearly as positive and as uplifting as him. So thank you very much for bringing that up, for sure. Well, man, so obviously a lot has been going on. We've been, you know, at work. So I'm actually, apologies to the listeners if my audio is a little bit different. I am not at home, and work has been
a little hectic lately. I have been out, and then other people have been out and been trying to scramble to figure things out. We're going through another round of lockdowns and mandates and whatnot here in the Twin Cities. I don't know how things have been down there in the Des Moines metro, but we've definitely been dealing with a new round of challenges. But man, we're all trying to just navigate as we. I'm not even gonna say as we try to figure out what the last stages of this is, because I don't know what the hell is going to happen from here on out. But I know, Chris, you went through your fair share of working from home and your wife dealing with what it means for a teacher to deal with some of these things. And certainly your family has been impacted by what we've gone through over the last, Jesus, it feels like umpteen billion years at this point.
Yeah, it might be 21 months. I think we all kind of got shut down mid-March of 2020. And at that point, I think a lot of us thought a couple months we'll be back to normal. And I think what we've learned is that we need to start to understand what the new normal is. So part of what we thought we'd do every once in a while is talk to some people that have had challenges, right? And have had, real life situations that they've had to deal with. One of the things that we're dealing with right now in this country is businesses that are struggling or learning how to thrive. And I think that it's beneficial to bring on people that can give us a different look at it from the inside. Whether it's teachers that are dealing with things in school and healthcare professionals and business owners and things like that. So I reached out to I would like to think is a friend of mine from Twitter. Funny enough,
he calls you an acquaintance, so
right.
It's fine.
Well, yeah, not a lot of people want to call me a friend. That's true. Teddy Hawley, who owns Beer Can Alley here in Des Moines and in Omaha, and also owns the Breakfast Club, which is a great breakfast place in downtown Des Moines as well, was gracious enough to come on. We'd love to talk to him about his businesses and how he started and what he did when he was younger. And let's talk about the last few months and how things have progressed. I know that one of the first interactions that Teddy and I had was probably a little bit of a contentious one. And
you had maybe like a less than.
I'm quick to admit that I am sometimes an overbearing jerk. What I would like to think that along with that is that I sometimes look at those instances and go, that was kind of an asshole move on my part. And Teddy was nice enough to let me patch it up, and we put it past us. So I appreciate it, Teddy. Thanks for coming on to Old Man Strength and hanging out with us.
Hey, that's probably one of the best introductions I've ever had, but thank you, gentlemen, for having me on. And yeah, it was, and he's trying to take all the blame on that too. I'm also a contentious one sometimes too, and quick to it, but I also like to think that at the end of the day, we're both good people, and we had a really good off social for everybody on a DM level too. And I think we had a really good conversation there too, and that probably led a little bit to today. And I do want to thank you guys both for bringing up Nick Bassett. I actually had it in my notes here to bring up. So that was really important to talk about today, I think. So thanks for the introduction. I told you the girls would come out here at some point. It only took about 10 seconds.
That's right. We talk about contentious and sometimes how bad Twitter can be. Nick was probably the epitome of what was good about Twitter.
I mean, you couldn't have said that any better. Anytime you try to feel sorry for yourself or what's really wrong, you look at the stuff that he dealt with and how he dealt with it in a, probably even knowing what the end game even was, and just how to continue to help people and bring a positive light to very negative situations. I don't know if there's a better person to look up to. And it relates to so many different facets of life that not just, you can bring that to anything you want to. He's just it's a great motivation for years to come, and he definitely will not be forgotten for a long time.
Amen.
Absolutely. Teddy, again, thank you very much for joining us. We always like to start this thing off a little bit. So Chris gave you a little bit of an introduction, but why don't you go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself, about your businesses, plural, and what kind of life has been like for you over all of this, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. So I'm 35 years old. I've been a bar owner for over 12 years now. I went to college right out of school. I worked at Wells Fargo for about 3 months and knew that was absolutely not for me. I worked managed.
That sounds exactly like Chris, actually. I can't believe you guys got
it was just not for me, man.
Unfortunately,
I worked at bars all through school, managed some bars through college, and we got kind of fortunate enough. This place came up that was, super available on a different level. I also knew I didn't want to go back to Vail, Iowa, a small town, and I love Vail, Iowa to this day too. My family still lives back there. They still crop insurance and do that stuff, and that just wasn't my path at that time. So we got this. It was called Heroes at the time. Actually, in October of 2009, actually, is when we opened that place. My cousin and I did, and it was a combination of timing, as everything always is with this stuff. My friends and I were just getting their first, real jobs, quote unquote, moving to the city from, various different. I went to I played basketball at Buena Vista, and then I went to UNI after that. So I had different friends from other places. My cousin was 5 years older. They'd been living there for a while. So it was kind of that dance clubby version of all our friends knew their friends, their new friends, their new 10 friends. And it kind of just I like to tell you we were just the smartest guys in the world, but that absolutely was not the case at the time. It was absolutely a lot of luck then. I can tell you that. We were fortunate enough to make it through a bunch of mistakes for that. And then about a year and a half later, we, the floor below it in the Court Center building, we opened up Beer Can Alley, which we still have we have in 3 cities now. And it's a dirt road named after a little dirt road in Vail, Iowa, where I'm from, town of 380, 400 people. It's just a little country bar at the time. Then we moved upstairs and we've had some, decent success with that. But, through all that stuff too, there's lots of trial and error as it comes. And, we're fortunate enough to get some breaks, be able to make it through some mistakes, a lot of good help, a lot of good employees. And, through the years, it's been a long, strange, winding road, and which leads you into COVID, which my joke always was getting into this business was, well, at least we're recession proof. Whether you're rich or poor or out of job, you can always drink at the bar, right? Turns out we were not such a thing as pandemic proof, which I did not have and build out in our plan on what you do when you open a bar or restaurant.
So Teddy, I'm a brewer by trade, so I can tell you that everything we thought about people wanting to go out and drink went out the window and realized people weren't allowed to go out and drink.
Well, hey, the people still drink. They drink a lot more in their homes. The drinking did not go down.
Oh yeah, no, for sure. But when you're depending on people coming through your doors, it's a whole other ball game for sure.
100%.
Well, no, I appreciate you saying what you did about everything you did to make things work, but also understanding that it was about people and about luck as well. I had that conversation with a friend that's a brewer at a different brewery this evening about how I think sometimes people take for granted that they're surviving and thriving in spite of themselves rather than because of themselves. I think a lot of times people have a false sense of confidence for why things worked out well. So I appreciate your humility there.
I think you're very ignorant to think that, and I mean that in the best way possible, that, maybe there's the 1% of the 1% of the 1% that truly are just that way, that can do it, just, be despite that. But, there's a reason we're not throwing footballs this weekend and that kind of stuff too. And we're trying to find our different ways in this world, even though we all wish we were. And some of that stuff, that you need a lot of luck and a lot of help. And, especially early on, very fortunate that some things bounced our way, because look, we were very green. I knew the ins and outs on how to do stuff from, a bar standpoint, but the business standpoint comes at you fast, and you have to learn on the fly there too. And there was there was a couple months and weeks there between it that it could have went either way, that could be doing something very differently now, 12 years later. So I definitely have always remembered that and not taken it for granted, I guess. And, with some of the new people too, I had a couple of people some people when we first got in the business that were very, very kind to me. Tom Zamolik was one. They owned People's above us, People's on Court right above us.
Sure.
And we got into that place too. Like we needed some bars full. There's a couple things he did to help us get started that I will never, ever, ever forget. So some new people that are getting the business, the first thing I tell them to is I go, don't. You think I just say, well, don't. What's your advice? And I go, first of all, don't.
Right.
Second off, you're really going to do it. They're going to do what they want anyway. But you just try to give, the best knowledge you can. I mean, I'm not very old age-wise in this business, but I've been doing this for a long time in this world. I mean, 12 years is if you're brewing too, that's an eternity in this world.
Sure.
On how long you've been doing different stuff. So I just think that the nicer you can be to some people, and there's been so many good friends I've made that are peers doing it too. I mean, don't get me wrong, you run into the ones that definitely aren't, and it's just like, come on, man, what are you doing? But a lot of it is it's community based, especially in a downtown area like we are. You can't have your own place by yourself. You need a community feeling on all these different places to be thriving, because people are coming down there to bar hop and go for an entertainment aspect, not just for your place. And that's where I've also learned that too, to where, we have some different places now too that are more destination place. Like our places in Omaha. So 5 years ago, we partnered with Tom Baldwin out there too, I can't even tell you how much I've learned from that guy when we partnered with him doing that stuff. I mean, he's got a million places in Des Moines too. I would be nowhere without that guy in this process, but we've win this. It's more like a Power and Light type place in Omaha, but the Power and Light place hasn't been really built out yet. It's a beautiful place. I'm like, oh my God, this place is amazing. These big screens, they have all these watch parties. It is very, very cool. Hotel is connected to it, but half the place is still kind of empty. So we've had to more or less, even though we're paying rent to have all this entertainment, this type of stuff too, we've had to more rely on, hey, we have to be a little bit of a destination. We're kind of between where the College World Series is played and right between Old Market there. It's still walkable, still very close. We're right there. We've had to rely a little more on, hey, you got to be a little more competitive on stuff and not, I'm not saying you're not embracing the whole thing as a whole, but you have to be just every single instance, every single bar business is completely different. If you try to run, every town's different, every city's different. If you try to run everything into a single basket, I don't think you can be successful that way if you're not willing to be able to change how you think and adapt to things. So that's the biggest thing I learned from a lot of great role models through that. And again, Tom Baldwin couldn't be a better one to give credit to on that.
Yeah, I watched my dad run his business for several years from his side. I worked with him hand in hand for several years. And that was something that he always prided himself on too, was surrounding himself with good people that were not there to tear you down, but to, what's that?
I said, and yet he hired you. He wanted to surround himself.
I know, right? Let's see, what's the time? How long are we into this now? You're a little late, too. You're a little late. Well, it's because he knew that I'd work weekends and I needed a job. Nobody else was going to. But he talked a lot about surrounding himself with good people and supportive people rather than people that were going to try to tear him down or whatever. I mean, to this point, there were people that he did business with that he knew probably would have liked to have seen. There were several people that would come in and be friendly, but were trying to learn more things so that they could turn around and then later try to put him out of business. That does happen, right? But it's the relationships. It's the people that you hire. It's treating people the right way, right? He treated everybody that worked there like they were family, regardless of whether or not they were or not.
And I'll even go back to kind of what you opened the show with there a little bit too. I mean, this is a high energy, high emotional business at times and stuff too. You're always going to make mistakes and you're going to get in some fights and do that stuff too. But I really, I like to think they can go back and patch that stuff up, and it's not always a grudge to hold for years to come on that type of stuff too, that you have to be able to say sorry in this business for sure. Because, just quite frankly, again, like back to the downtown thing is, what's good for one person is good for everybody a lot, to where you want people to come to an area and that stuff too. And a lot of that just takes getting along. And if the pandemic's done anything through that, especially in downtown Des Moines, I can tell you that for a fact. There was a lot of different people that, quite frankly, weren't on speaking terms, wouldn't be in the same room, that are more than on speaking terms now, understand what really can go away when it's not just about your place and it's not about what's across the street from you, that there is more of a community feel through this, that, hey, it's not fun paying $15,000, $20,000 leases when you're getting nothing there and can't open. That there's different things to be happy about and get along with, and I think a lot of people are just, quite frankly, happy to have their doors open again.
So, I mean, Teddy, you were dumb enough to open up one business, but having multiple businesses, do you really find that having that community of other people, not just people that you partner with, but other businesses and other people that you can, as much as competitive as it can be, that also that you've got other people around that you can still kind of talk to and learn from and bank on to help you kind of figure out all that, right?
Yeah, it that truly came out during this process. You get, week or two, you heard all me again. No one really knew it was going to be a week or two. Right away, I knew the week or two was BS. In my head, I was thinking maybe end of summer, July, August in my head, and it was just what's going to happen, and it became more of again, everybody started talking. People you maybe didn't talk to or have their numbers. All of a sudden, now you have their numbers. All of a sudden, you're talking weekly. All of a sudden, you're talking daily. You become like, when you're used to out working and doing things and being busy, and you're quite literally sitting on your hands at home with nothing to do.
Right.
This wasn't a work from home.
You want to be,
We wanted to be doing stuff. That was not the thing. It was literally, well, this is all some people have known, take away me with multiple places. Some of these places, they're third generation Italian shops and wherever. They're in their 60s. They've been doing this since they were born and birth. What else are you supposed to do? There's nothing else to do because you're literally not allowed to do it. And the biggest thing that brought everybody together was, not being allowed to do something's one thing, but you can't be making us pay full bills and rents and not allowing us to open.
Yep.
This didn't become a right or left thing for me. This became a, hey, you either need to let us open the doors and fight it out, or you need to be compensating us accordingly not to, because you're quite literally pushing people out the doors. And listen, I got it. They went through the process and all that was, but when you're at that high strong, us with multiple businesses in multiple cities and different rules, and every city had different stuff, and the PPP and all that stuff, nobody knew what that was going to be. That took a while to even get to that point. And I had some really good friends help me through that too. Sean Roberts and those guys from the Entourage, Jose and Pistol and Justin Small, they came out to the house when those first nights too. This happened right before St. Patty's Day, which this is, so we have a couple of months that maybe you break even through the winter and spring, and this kind of makes up for that too at tenfold. And it happened right before that. And we made the decision before our governor the next morning did not to open, put a press release out because that's kind of where it was going. But there was really nobody to take a serious lead, but then to make you feel better that you made the right decision to do stuff. And then months later, the 10 o'clock dang, and then you're standing up, you get we got $1,000 ticket for people standing up, not sitting at their bar stools at 50% capacity. Our bar stools actually make you sit higher. Unless you're 6'3", you are actually higher sitting on a stool, standing on the floor drinking. We got $1,000 ticket from the AVD for that. So there were just so many weird things that just kind of made you super frustrated through this process. That, without my wife, my family, and some really, really good friends and stuff too, and especially that community makes bring together, it truly made you get through the hardest parts and help you come out the backside a little better, at least with a lot more perspective.
The nice
Yeah.
thing about being the height that I'm at, Teddy, is I can be standing and people still think I'm sitting down. So,
It took I was gonna make a short joke too. I'm so upset.
yeah, no, Chris, I was just trying to be that. But no, go ahead, Chris.
At the time that things got first shut down, I think that what my biggest concern is okay, we're shutting down because of the unknown. We don't know what this is. We don't know how deadly it is. We don't know how, there was a lot of unknowns. We were in the fog of the war. But after 6 weeks, when we still didn't have any better answers, that's when I was concerned that we just wasted 6 weeks of people's livelihood.
Yeah. And
you know what I mean?
The average business average nationwide is cash in hand 9 days.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. In this business, it's cash in hand. I mean, we were fortunate enough, we were well beyond that for that. So we were one of the fortunate ones. And I was very upfront about that when that happened. It's like, hey, we're better off than most in this. But the nation average was 9 days cash in hands. And like you said, now do 6 weeks. Because there was no help coming on any of that stuff too. Nothing had happened at that point too. Rent was still due. Those building owners had mortgages due. There was a trickle down that was just hemorrhaging stuff. There's other people that people have babies and that stuff to do too. They couldn't go buy milk. There was just so many people in the service industries. People I don't think people realized how important nationwide or how many jobs that truly was nationwide until this happened, because it became such a national story. I mean, do you enjoy your entertainment? Well, this is what these people do, and that's how they feed their families. And maybe sometimes I hope, and I really do think that other people that weren't involved in this, maybe hadn't been ever, realized a little bit or maybe had some more appreciation. Now when they go out a little bit, they tip a little more. Maybe they're a little more patient when something's not going quite correct. Because quite frankly, in our industry now, some people that got out had to find different jobs and they're not coming back.
Yeah.
Oh, and that was the question I was going to ask you is do you think that has led to some of the shortages in the service industry because the people that worked those jobs for so long were screaming to high heaven that they were important and that they were being mistreated. And then when they were still the ones that were hurting, or sometimes, grocery store people, whatever, that still had to work. They couldn't go home and work from home. They just felt unappreciated afterwards. And I think they're standing up a little bit now. Don't you think?
I don't want to speak for why they do or don't go back to stuff, but would I be shocked if that's the reason? Absolutely not. I think that's absolutely a very fair take or question. I think personally, my opinion is I think a lot of people got into it. Maybe that we're on the fringe of, do I stay? I mean, some people work at nightclubs or whatever too. Eventually, maybe you think you get to an age, you grow out of that, you go to serving or, to a brewery, you can really grow and make different money on that. They had to find by necessity different jobs to support their families.
Yeah.
And then they found those jobs and they didn't come back because, there was different stay-at-home. Hey, not everybody's business went down through this. A lot of other businesses adapted and actually went the other way. I mean, if you're in the tech world, went through the roof, obviously, for jobs. So, while a lot, this stuff, the brick and mortar going away did scare me a little bit. That maybe people saw, hey, we really don't, even like office buildings. Hey, maybe we can save a bunch of money and not send people down here. There's such a trickle down effect to that, especially in cities and type of stuff too, to where, hey, this restaurant that's been here forever, this brewery, this bar, whatever too, over lunches, this happy hours and that stuff too. Well, if those people aren't coming out of their houses to go somewhere to do stuff and they're never coming back, you're going to start seeing ghost towns and that type of stuff too, which I get. Hey, I get the internet and all that stuff and what you do, but I don't think any of us want to live in a world where there's literally no brick and mortar where you can go out, or it's very, very limited.
No, I don't think so either. And when the pandemic hit, I was working for a company that had their office in Capitol Square downtown. And they had just rented the rest of the floor that we were on and had just started renovating because they were going to hire more people. And we were going to have the entire floor the week before they send everybody home. And to this day, that wing is now finished and sitting empty because they have not been back to the office for 2 months. Now, last summer, I finally told my boss, I got to go back to the office. Said, I'm vaccinated. I'm going crazy sitting in my house. I have nobody to talk to. I need a place to go, whether it's, a 20-minute car ride to go to the office to even though there was hardly anybody down there, it just felt like there was a purpose. And the amount of ghost town that I saw in that skywalk was sad. There was so many businesses that were empty and they were not there. And
they're never coming back either. They're never coming back.
Right, exactly. And the lunch spots and the places that you could go eat and all those things. One of the favorite restaurants that we used to go down to all the time was Bernardo's, a little burrito place right down there across next to Fong's. Not there anymore.
Yep.
And that was a small family that just were probably living their dream. That's the reality of it, the sadness of it.
I actually knew that family, and you're exactly correct, and that's exactly what happened, Chris.
And it's sad. We ate there probably 2 or 3 times a week, as you can see. I mean, I ate a lot of burritos there.
Their burritos were awesome.
They were, and it was sad that when I went back down there and they were gone. And you just think to yourself, as when watching my dad's business fail and having to close up shop, those things really affected me more than probably the average person, because I knew what those families and people were going through.
I mean, like, lunch is exactly a prime example that I think people have been overlooking with all of this, right? So you got, as a brewery, we're not worried about that lunch rush. We're worried about those people that want to go do happy hour and all of those things. I don't think we realize how much that, like, a lot of those places relied on that lunch business as their bread and butter, particularly in those urban centers where people are going there.
Like Chris said, that skywalk there, those places were literally only open for lunch. Most of them closed down at 2-3 in the afternoon. They were done after that. Their whole business was lunch with those thousands of people that worked in skywalk that no longer were there, and they're not coming back.
Yeah, and even if all those restaurants weren't shut down by any mandate or anything, just the fact that all those businesses had people working from home, just that alone impacts their business in a way that, whether or not you want to talk about what you can do to talk to your legislators about those things, just the fact that those people are staying away, that's a whole other way that those people were impacted. That it doesn't have to do with a mask mandate or a vaccine mandate or anything else. Just the fact that so many people are working from home, and you say, maybe these businesses have learned that they don't need to have these headquarters and all those things, but that trickle down effect is absolutely huge.
It does. I mean, Wells Fargo has made that decision on some major different divisions in downtown Des Moines that there is. I mean, I don't want to give you the exact number, but I think it's in the thousands that are not coming back downtown. They're going to let their lease run out because they don't own those buildings, they're leasing them. And that it is such a, like you said, it's such a trickle down from there. It's like that little mom and pop shop, they counted on this. Well, now we have to restructure this. What's that going to be? It's a never ending thing that happened because, and for Wells Fargo, they didn't lose any money through this. They actually found a way for them to save money. Like, hey, we didn't need these guys in the offices. We can get just as much done and save from having this much office space in the next done. So it's a win for the big boys there and a lose for the mom and paws. And that's what always just really bothers me, because I'm such a brick and mortar guy that's what just really, really bothers me, is that's what's kind of become of that, which is sad. I'm all about, if you go out and do your best and it doesn't work, failure is part of getting into this. But some of it, when it's out of your control, that's what just is hard for me to swallow.
Yeah, go ahead, Tim.
Well, I was gonna say, I am someone who cut their teeth in the service industry, right? And so I am someone who there's a lot of ways that I see all of this where, a lot of that stuff is gone. And I also understand why a lot of those folks have decided to leave and go do something else. I mean, we are an industry that it notoriously does not necessarily pay well or understand things like leave for medical reasons or things like that. Like, it's not necessarily an industry where we've set ourselves up to be pandemic proof by any means, right? And so I think it's caused a whole lot of learning for a whole lot of people in maybe ways that we weren't prepared for. And I'm sure you've ran into maybe some some lessons learned on what it means to have a staff that frankly is more vulnerable to a lot of stuff like that.
Yeah, for sure. And I think the best part, for us and anybody else that did, maybe there's some late night stuff too, to where it was lots of college help, and a lot of it maybe was churned through anyway. In that type of industry, the super late night stuff was, oh, you don't like this job? Well, there's 30 people with their applications in wanting your job too. Guess what? There's not 30 applications anymore with that stuff. Exactly. So it's been a big, I don't know what the right word is to use for this, but more appreciation is not the right word I'm using, but it's, you know what I'm trying to say though? There's more just, absolutely our thing has changed. So you have to look at every instant differently, whether that's a little more pay here, treat things differently, being more lenient on, okay, go take your time to do this, get back, but also knowing that there's not 10 people in the bullpen ready to come in and do this. So
a little more tolerance, probably.
Yes.
Tolerance is the word you're looking for. Yep.
And that also has been good and bad, because there also has been some employees that also use that to their advantage of, well, they're going to fire them anyway because you can't. Right, so it's, and then, but it makes you appreciate the good ones that you have and had even more that continue to do this that aren't doing that way too. So I do think it's easier for some people to maybe rise through the ranks with a company like ours that is growing, more management position, that type of stuff too, that they are going to be able to grow faster with better pay and better type of stuff doing that in our company now than they way faster than they could have 3 years ago. So that part of it in the service industry, especially for our company now that is growing, has multiple spots. Now we're going on like 10 spots now, is way different than it was for us, 3 years ago. We had less spots. So we finally got to the point, at about when I got done feeling sorry for myself and whining at the world, there was two ways to look at it, that, hey, there is going to be some opportunities on this, which isn't good, and you're not proud of that, but there's going to be places closed, places that are for sale for a hell of a lot less money than it was 3 years ago. And it was take on more debt, take on more risk to grow, and not sit and wait to leave and lose that. And that's kind of the mentality that our group took. I bought out my 50-50 business partner 2 months before the pandemic, so I also had a monthly note to pay off on that too. The timing wasn't very good on that. As you're explaining, this is a great move, my wife. This is such a good move. Good luck on that too. We got this new nice little monthly note we got to pay, and then whammy.
No, dude, I quit my job like a month before the pandemic hit, thinking that I had a couple other things in the works and had enough kind of savings up there, and then realized, oh no, I'm just never gonna have a job again for a while. So I absolutely get that. Sometimes the best laid intentions still mean that you have a whole other challenge to hit.
I worked out at a gym here, and I had friends that were partial owners of it, and they had just sold it and finalized the sale in February of 2020.
Oh my!
And the new owner bought it. And within a month he had to shut down and couldn't have anybody in there. And I told my buddy, I was like, man, you guys, you couldn't have had a better timing than that. And I felt bad for the new owner. I knew him a little bit. He was a trainer there that ended up buying it, but yeah, that was, and then he turned around and opened up the Steak and Shake in the middle of a pandemic. So that guy's got some guts, let me tell you. Which worked out pretty well, because if you ever drove around there the first month or so that it was there was cars lined all the way up around the corner.
That was wild.
It was crazy. So, but yeah, when you talked about taking the opportunities during there and expanding and so on and taking those risks, my dad always said you have to spend money to make money, and sometimes that's a little scary of a proposition.
And that's why I told you I came out here. My girls were singing "If You Want It, Take It" from the Sing movie. I'm like, I kind of knew we're probably gonna go down this road talking about today, and for whatever reason, that kind of registered in my brain. And I got like, hey, I had just two little girls at the time when the pandemic hit. And then the absolute best part for me that came out of COVID was we absolutely had a COVID baby, and his name's Russell. That's my dad too. So we got Russ. He just turned 1 year old last week. So yeah, he was absolutely the best part for me that came out of that. But you had this family to feed too. It's like, all right, eventually you got to put, and that's why I go back to talk about Nick Bassett and his, how positive his thinking was. Like, all right, well, get your ass up off the couch and figure out a way to change it now too, because there is going to change. You have to do it. And that's just the approach we took was, so we just bought the Boathouse, which is across from Camp Dodge, January 1. We just purchased that little dive bar out there. It kind of made the news for all the wrong reasons, politically, with stuff banners and that too. So we're kind of cleaning up some of that and doing some that stuff up too. We have another project in the works right now. We signed where the Breakfast Club's at now. We signed that lease the month before COVID hit. Our landlords there were actually nice enough to let us push it back. We ended up, opening 10 months later, kind of in the middle of the pandemic. But if they would have made us push that envelope right there, it'd have been, we were very fortunate with that project too. And we're currently going to be opening the second one out in West Glen right now too. So we have a lot of stuff going on. We're taking some chances to do that. And you said it takes money to make money. So my business partner and I were it takes money. So sometimes it takes the bank's money to do some of that stuff, which is where we're at. But that's the avenue we've chosen, instead of kind of just sit back on what we had and just see what happens. Because my view on that was we need to go that direction. I don't know if that's right or wrong. We'll, only time will tell on that. But that's what we chose. But back to that part too, like, we had a lot of good workers for us too, and they're now starting to climb the ranks and get some. They're not just bartenders anymore too. They're getting these management roles and having, some nice paydays, or some of them worked other jobs too. They don't have to do that anymore. They kind of just focus on this too. And then, so that part of it makes me feel good. So, there's always some sunshine out of dark days too. I'm hoping we have more sunlight than all that dark there was for a long time. But like you let off the show with too, we just don't know with this stuff. It's so day to day, depending where you live and what it is too. It's different. So
Teddy, let me ask you, you'd mentioned kind of going through some personal struggles, the woe is me, why is this happening, and you found your way through that. But frankly, what gives you the balls to to make these moves while we still don't know what's going on? Like, you talked about, being as lucky as you are, smart to do these things. And I would not blame you for being a little bit more timid, a little bit more passive. What gives you kind of that optimism to make some of these moves right now?
If you're very close to me, that's just kind of my personality anyway. It's always been that. It's always been a risk taker on that. It's just how I'm wired. It's failure has never scared me, which is why I've taken some risks. And like I said, I've been lucky to get through some stuff too. It's not that failure doesn't scare me. That's probably the wrong word to say. I'm not afraid to take chances. Failure absolutely scares me. I'm not afraid to take chances that could fail, I guess. Sure. And that was always that's a way better word to say that. I'm definitely afraid of failure. Definitely afraid of failure, but I'm not afraid to take those chances to get to this different level. And I lost that fire, light, whatever you want to call that. And so my wife kind of is one that kind of got me out of my funk. She's like, well, we'll do something about it then. For lack of a better term, that's kind of what she said. And she absolutely was want to do that. And again, I'm fortunate enough to have a very successful business partner that he could take some of these hits more than I could on some of our new projects we had. And he's my partner on some of these new projects we have too, that I didn't take them all on myself like I did before. I only own, half a lot of these, not the whole thing. So there was different approaches to it. A lot of my places were very, very late night based that had no chance to be open through all this stuff too. So these new things have more food to it. So it's not the exact same approach I had before. It's a very still, yes, we're moving forward with new stuff and doing, the Breakfast Club opened up after the pandemic. We were between concepts on what we were going to do. We kind of went that way. This seems to be going, it's been going very well. So it's just, we've kind of adapted our game plan on what I thought it would be. We had another beer can alley that was going to open up in an old Joe's Crab Shack outside Kansas City. We were supposed to get those papers April 1st. So there's the only thing where, thank God that wasn't, February 1st, March 1st. That would have been really bad. And we were actually going to try to own that building, and that didn't happen. So we completely changed, different approaches on different takes in this industry, because there is a million different avenues to go in here. So again, I don't know if it's right or not. That's just always been kind of my personality. That's what I've always done. I was a guy in high school that was, I was 5'10" and can only shoot. So if I was 0 for 10, I had to make sure I try to get to 5 for 20 somehow. So just keep shooting a little bit. I guess what it was.
I love the shooter's mentality.
But rest his soul, my junior high coach, being one of the closest guys to me, his advice to me, and I put it in my yearbook. He goes, when in doubt, shoot. Was always his advice to me. So I've always kind of taken that with me forever. So when in doubt, shoot.
Yeah, so, that whole shooter's mentality of if you're on, shoot. If you're off, shoot until you're on.
Right.
There you go.
Exactly.
Which I appreciate. Chris and I have talked a bit about this. He mentioned his dad's business before, but just that whole idea of, his dad opened up a computer business. His dad didn't know shit about computers. Right.
Didn't know a thing about it, but he knew he could sell, and he knew he could sell stuff, and he figured the rest of it would just fall into place. And he taught me, similar to what you were just talking about, fear of failure is a pretty big motivator, right? It makes me work harder. It makes me try harder. It makes me take more chances, because the last thing I want to do is go to my family or my wife and tell her that I failed her. Yeah. So, and that was the same kind of thing when you had said a little bit ago about, I could sit here and just take it. That was the same mentality I had 4 years ago when I was battling cancer. I've told this story before. My daughter came up, she was crying. She didn't understand why it was happening to us. And I was like, we're not sitting in this room feeling sorry for ourselves. The fact is that I have cancer. Now we got two choices. I can sit here and let life kick the shit out of me and just lay here and take a beating, or I can get up and do everything I need to do to make sure that I have a fighting chance. And that's what I'm going to do. I'll be damned if I'm going to sit there and take a beating all night long. That's not happening. So, and that's kind of how you have to take those types of things. And I think a lot of people did, which is one of the things that, looking back through our interaction, I admire about you, is that I don't think I ever saw you publicly, woe is me, this is unfair, I got shut down, things like that. I don't think I ever saw that, which was part of the reason why I came back and was like, I think I misunderstood him, and I think maybe he misunderstood me a little bit.
Twitter has that effect.
Right? I know. I've said 100 times to the people that I get into some conversations with, it usually ends up in a DM, and I'd say, if you and I were sitting across and just having a beer together, I think we'd probably like each other.
100%. You're really a guy.
So I usually just tell people, like, just ignore Chris for a second and you'll realize it's fine.
I love that.
I almost went off on a tangent today because somebody was dissing Mike Singletary. So that shows you where my priorities are. Yes, I know he can't coach. I understand that he can't coach. But don't tell me he doesn't know football. The man played football for several years. He knows more than you do sitting in your mom's basement.
No, Teddy. Sometimes you just got to let Chris get himself spun up and move on through all that stuff and just sit there and smile and nod and.
But he was so right, and for me though too was you're sitting there and picking on things became so political, especially through social media on this, and I truly am one of those people in the middle. Like, I hate both sides equally. I think they all just suck. That's kind of where I'm at. But, some things will get somewhere. And when you do have an instance, especially when things were so heightened, then you just have tendencies to push buttons instead of sometimes I'm like, why didn't you just scroll past that? Oh, I was sitting at home and started having beers at 2:00 instead of 6 like I normally do. I was a little more aggressive by 5:00 than I usually would have been instead of being.
I got into one of the worst online arguments with my nephew one time. It was an hour. And the next morning he woke up and he texted me and he's like, hey, I was drinking quite a bit last night. And I was like, yeah, well, so was I. So and trust me, there's been times I've went to bed and put the phone down and I was like, nah, that was really dumb. I was out of line. But you're right. I think politics has caused a lot of problems. I miss the times when I could be in a room with somebody and not have any idea what their politics are because it didn't matter.
Yeah. They're so far few in between now, and that's really unfortunate. It really is.
But Debbie, I think I think now more than ever, I mean, you talk about sitting there and talking to your peers in the service industry and other places, and you guys have kind of had to be a united front in talking to your representatives and your political leaders to look out for your interests. So right, wrong, or indifferent, you kind of have to take a political view just to look out.
I think most people just think I'm Republican because of that too, but there was nobody harder on Governor Reynolds publicly than me through that time. I kind of took that road on going at, I mean, I went, you can probably ask Chris about that. I mean, it was daily. My one political stance to take on that is like, do something. And it wasn't just directly about a political party. It was at her, and because she was the one in charge now, and how she was handling certain things. So I absolutely have no problem doing that. I just don't give a shit if you have an R or a D next to your name. I'm going to treat you accordingly by how your actions are when it comes to politics.
Oh, sure. I think Chris is a total D, so I think that totally makes
I'm sure that means douchebag. I'm sure. To that point, I think the biggest problem that I had with her, and again, it wasn't because she's a Republican, it was because she was in charge, was that she shut everybody down. Then she opened everybody back up. Then she's out campaigning in big ass rallies with thousands of people with no masks. But then she reshut certain businesses down because they were doing the right thing. That's when I lost my mind.
And
like, you can't go to those small businesses that are relying on customers and saying, you guys didn't do the right thing, so now I have to shut you down, when you're at a rally with 1,000, 2,000 people.
Yeah, and that's what bothered a lot of that time too. I mean, and then for us, we have Beer Canal in Sioux City. That's right in the river. So we'd opened up a month before the pandemic. No, sorry, 3 weekends. We didn't have our grand opening yet. We've actually never had a grand opening there because of all this stuff. But we had that 10 o'clock rule, so we became a pregame bar. They went across the river to South Dakota where there was no rules, and then to Nebraska where there was way fewer, and just kind of our whole premise had to completely change. It kind of got lost in the shuffle when we did come back open because people are creatures of habit. You know what I mean? And like it was hard to make them.
In South Dakota, I think they watch too much Deadwood. I think they think that no laws apply to anything.
And the weirdest part is my great uncle is the mayor of Huron. He might have retired last year. He's in his 70s and he is the biggest Dem ever. And I think he got out of it because of it too, because he's Huron, South Dakota, Democrat mayor in South Dakota. You wouldn't think it's possible, but he was.
Yeah.
Hey, shout out Paul Elbert on that.
There you go. Yeah, we're big in South Dakota.
Big.
Well, yeah, no, Teddy, I appreciate that, because like at the end of the day, man, Republican, Democrat, whatever, it's not just you and your business and your livelihood and your personal happiness and, in the nicest way possible. A lot of ways I could say I don't give a shit if you're feeling bad about yourself, but you have people who are relying on you to be a business, and you've got employees, and those employees have family and all of that, and so it's a lot greater than just you and your personal pride. And so it doesn't matter what your affiliation is, you need us to be able to make the best decisions for everyone. So I appreciate that you can put all of that aside and figure out what that is, because man, it's I still don't know that we have any idea what kind of the next steps look like, and I don't know if you have any thoughts on what kind of the future holds, but I'm gonna maybe ask you to have a crystal ball here.
Well, unfortunately, to go back to what we said, unfortunately, it does get a little political there. Some of that stuff kind of does matter in our industry, where you're living and what rules and regs are. And I'm not saying one's better than the other, But I will say this is that, hey, politicians, you gotta pass by, hey, nobody saw this crap coming last time. Well, what's your there better be national on the highest level possible teams put in place to be able to roll some stuff out again a hell of a lot faster, cleaner, and better than whatever that crap was we had the last time. That's what needs to be better. Because if there is a national pandemic to where you do need to shut us down and do that stuff too, you can't tell people to make $0 and keep spending. I mean, that was ridiculous. It was ridiculous.
And that's not to say that shutting down wasn't the right thing for people's safety and for all of that, right? That's not about whether it was right or wrong. It was the impact that it had.
The impact on what you gotta act faster. What's your plan? I mean, their plans to come out for it wasn't weeks, it was months, plural. Yes. And then like, well, this PPP, maybe you won't have to pay it back when it's done. Well, which one is it? I mean, you know what I mean? And it's very, very different on, well, which one is it? It was not clear. So I think those are very important on, especially this, because I don't think COVID's going anywhere ever. It's going to be on how the world deals with such things moving forward and how it is. And I don't have a crystal ball there. Hell, I wish I did. But a lot of it too is just, more, and I gotta get way better at it too, is respect your neighbor on their decision. That is too. Nobody's smarter than the next person. And that was my biggest challenge too, is getting mad maybe about some people and stuff too. And that it's just, hey, there is vaccinations and stuff out now too. There's things you can take to protect yourself too, but the in-game fighting we have as a country has got to stop, because it's disgusting how mean people are to each other now. That's got to stop. And if it's the right reasons, that's fine. But it's like bad things are almost just celebrated if it's on the other side you're thinking of. And that just makes me want to like weep inside for our country.
I've said quite a bit that the American people themselves, I think, can get along and can coexist. It's the people in charge that realize they would be without a job if that ever happened.
And the media networks and the people that get paid by clicks and all that stuff.
We can talk about one side or the other, but
they're both guilty of it. They're both guilty. Right.
Fox News has their agendas and so on. And if you don't think that CNN doesn't miss having Donald Trump, I mean, he has not been president for a year, and they still talk about him every single day. Because they know, right? Because they know that those people that hate him will tune in, and that's what drives me. I have not watched hardly any news since the election because I just can't. I can't take it. All I want is the facts and what happened. I don't want your spin on it, and I don't want your pushing of an agenda. And they both have it. They both do.
I truly think it'll take a third party, and I used to think it was, years and years away. Maybe we're closer to that than we think.
I mean, my number one agenda over the last 6-8 months was, I think that we can unite the entire country around just the idea that all of Chris's takes are wrong. I think we can join hands across America.
You would be wrong, my friend. Well, maybe.
You guys know somebody that could put that on a T-shirt? Is there somebody on that could put that on a T-shirt?
This is wrong. We'd sell the fuck out of those, man. I'm telling you right now, we'd sell the fuck out of those. You bet.
That's great.
I lost my train of thought now. I have no idea where we're at.
Good. That's my goal, Chris, is to derail you as much as possible. It keeps you humble.
Let's talk about something fun.
Yeah.
Let's talk about.
Teddy, what's you got going on that you want to talk about that's exciting?
Well, I will say this, and I on my phone from right now too. But Sean Robertson knows. He wanted to tell me too that they're having that. Again, for some local, they're having a Chantarage watch party out at Drake coming up here. I think it's in February sometime. I can post that later, so that's really cool. And then something I wish I had more details on right now that I've actually been DMing with Chris about too is that I'm working with I have some pretty good friends that are, I don't want to say yeah, you know what? F it. They are pretty famous. They weren't famous when I met them coming through, but they kind of are now in Nashville. They're working on doing some really cool charity work. It'll be through Iowa with some of those guys for some breast cancer and some CJD and some kind of close personal things that are close to me. And I reached out to Chris, weeks ago about that too. I don't want to give any details on that until they are locked down or done, but there's going to be some really cool things that I think you guys can help us retweet on that later to, kind of really help people. And I think that's what's kind of important too, is to be able to give back and do some things that are pretty cool to people to, just help have a good time, help other people are having a good time, and have a beer. That's fantastic, right? What else do you want?
That's right.
Yeah, no, I like it. That's what we call in the industry a teaser. I thought that was very, very great there, Teddy.
There you go.
Yeah,
so you went to UNI, but you're a big Iowa State fan.
Ooh. So yeah. Well, I grew up a Hawkeye fan.
Well, we all have our faults.
My little brother played football at Iowa State is when that switched. He was on their 2 bowl teams that played at in New York City and Memphis. Rode his last 2 bowl games.
Nice.
So, going through that whole process with him too, it flipped, and that's kind of what it was. And that's I got a bunch of posters I could show you, but yeah, no, that's what it was. I love Iowa State. I actually am one of the few that don't hate Iowa. I actually do cheer for them still because I grew up that way. But you know what is worse than maybe political banter is Iowa and Iowa State. That might even be worse than Republicans.
It is worse.
I don't know, man. You brought up front of the pod Sean Roberts, and he's got some of the worst sports takes in all of the state of Iowa. So
that's what makes Sean though. That's what makes Sean.
Sean's passionate, that's for sure. That's for sure.
Dumbest smart guy I've ever met in my entire life.
I love Sean. Yeah. That poor bastard.
Anyone who actively wants to cheer for the White Sox, I already feel a little bit of shame for. So
that guy told our group chat, and he was so proud to tell it, that him and his girlfriend were spending this money to go to Disney by themselves, Disney World, and all that stuff. I'm like, that literally is hell on earth to me. It's going in lines with all those people. It's a running joke now. And now I go, to make it worse, he found a cheaper flight that's going to go out of O'Hare. I go, I didn't think your trip could get any worse than it did. But now you're saying you're going to the worst airport in America to get to hell on earth. Yeah. It is just insane. It's insane to me, Sean.
Yeah.
Come on, man.
I booked our trip to Vegas for the Iowa State game, and I do not fly very often. I'm terrible at booking flights. And I booked this flight, and it was from Des Moines to Charlotte, and then Charlotte to Las Vegas. And I was like, that was the worst fucking idea I've ever had in my entire life. We sat in Charlotte for like 2 hours and then flew back over Iowa. It was terrible.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've seen a map before, Chris.
I was going off price, motherfucker. I couldn't help it, man.
There it is. You broke him. You got him, bud.
And I'll tell you though, my wife was like, "It's okay, honey. It's no big deal. It's fine." I felt really bad. She was like, "It's fine." We stopped at a hotel in Nashville on the way back. We were driving back from Florida, from Disneyland, by the way. And we were driving, which I don't ever recommend. That's a terrible idea too. And we stopped. I booked this hotel outside of Nashville just off of a website. And when we pulled up, it was one of those ones that has like the doors on the outside. It was straight out of Bates Motel. I mean, it was not. And the boys were like, "Do we have to stay here?" And I kept telling Stacy, "I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. I did not look at the pictures here." And she's like, "It's okay. It's fine." She didn't care. It was $80 a night. She did not care.
The boys saying, "Do we have to stay here?" is the best part of that. So, do we have to stay here?
We were like, "Do we have to stay?"
No.
Oh, man.
No. Teddy, every time Chris tells another story about his wife, I'm torn between thinking that she's an absolute saint and maybe she just has terrible taste that she's put up with everything.
My God. You call my wife without taste?
You know what? Hey, there we go. I'll give you a little plug. So my wife sells this. She sells. Well, I don't want to say pharmaceutical projects because that's bad. But she actually does eye stuff.
She's a drug dealer.
Yeah, basically. There is it just came out in January. There is an eye drop that if you need reading glasses for readers, you put this drop in your eye. You don't need reading glasses for 6 hours.
Oh wow!
My God.
Yeah,
I need that.
My dad's obsessed with it already. Because he can't read his phone in front of him without his readers, but that's only thing he needs is readers. He's fine without it, so he's just obsessed.
That sounds amazing.
I wish I could tell you what it's called. I should be better at it, but I don't. But hey, go ask your eye doctor about it if you need reading glasses.
Crazy.
I know. I think that's a great idea. I mean, like Chris is illiterate, so I don't know that it's revision that's the problem. But
so how did you two guys meet? How did you meet? I'm familiar with your podcast, but maybe your origins I'm not that good to. So for maybe some new listeners, why don't you tell them how all this started and how you guys met, and let me kind of control your podcast now because I'm that kind of asshole.
Who's hijacking this thing? What the hell? Who are you bringing on?
We're getting a professional on here that's going to host it. Tim sucks. Ted Flint. This is how Ted Flint put out a tweet and wanted to know if anybody wanted to join Tailgate Society. And at the time, I was on my own doing a little bit of video editing and some hype tape stuff and whatever, just for fun. And I thought that might be fun to do. So I joined, and then Tim and I followed each other on Twitter, and he was part of that. And he said, "What do you think of doing a podcast? We seem to have similar views." And as I told John Walters last time, we were the two oldest guys on Tailgate Society, and we thought, what's an underserved demographic like two old white guys? So let's do a podcast.
Yeah, whose voice isn't being heard right now? Old white men.
Old white men.
How do you think I feel seeing the guests you guys get on your show, and then there's freaking me? They're gonna have to do like the longest description on who the hell this guy is when you put out, and they're gonna listen to it too. Chris Williams, John Walters, all these guys, and like, who the hell is Ted Hawley?
They're gonna know now. All 7 of our listeners, they're gonna know. Hey, it's
we're what's called influencers, Teddy. So
right.
I like it.
I'm looking for a new job. No, so if I can somehow turn this into some cash, that's what I need. It's a small world, Teddy. Apparently, you know my neighbor across the street.
I pretty well. Actually, I've known him back in his. I know him from the industry. Actually, he was a bartender before I even moved to Des Moines. Right when I moved there.
Bastard's a Texas fan. He's having a rough go of it the last few years.
Go Kansas, baby.
I know like 3 of your neighbors. You and I have never actually met in person. Like we've never talked to each other face to face. And I know like 3 or 4 of your neighbors.
Yeah, it's crazy. He knows an old friend of mine from high school. They were neighbors for a while. You went to high school with my neighbor's wife, right? With Mike's wife.
Yep. One of your other neighbors is a good friend of mine. We've done some bachelor parties together. So yeah.
I bet
crazy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like Norwalk has like what 6 people, so it's not surprising I would know 4 of them.
Right. I could listen. Years ago, a buddy of mine bought me a T-shirt that was perfect. It said, "Fuck off. I got enough friends." He's like, "I saw the."
You know what? I feel bad saying this too. I do have enough good friends too. My wife will meet this. Bless her heart, she loves the gym and that stuff too. I like beer. We just have different interests in that. My golf course is like her gym. Like, hey, meet these very nice people. And they're all very nice people. And she's like, "Why do you act differently around someone?" I go, I was nice. But why aren't you like, super like yourself? I go, I sell all day and I have enough fucking friends. I don't want to have these guys come to our house for dinner next week. You can only put a fake face on for so many days, boys.
Well, Cole's a pretty good guy. He's not too bad.
Cole's an awesome guy.
After we beat Texas the last time, I saw him a couple times outside and I didn't rub it in. About the 3rd time, he's like, "What are you, sick over there? You haven't said horns down or anything.
He's waiting for it.
I was giving you enough time to soak it all in, my friend. So yeah, I got my Mustang stuck in the snowstorm. Luckily, he was outside. He helped me push it back into the garage.
I read that. That was funny.
I was so pissed. And I had to hurry up and get pushed in there before my wife saw it and told me I saw it. And she said, I told you so. Because that was one of the first things she said when I bought that car is how are you going to drive it around in the snow?
I was gonna say, Chris, there's an awful lot of that you're a very brave man for admitting to that.
I'm an open book, man.
I mean, Bill's gonna give you 10 times the shit than I would for that.
I know, right?
It's no Lacar.
Well, all right, Teddy. Let me ask you a question. If you is it sad that I took my senior picture with it too? Is that sad too?
It is very sad.
A 1982.
I have questions. I have questions. Yeah. Is it the exact same car?
What?
Is it the same car you had then, or did you go find the exact same one that was different?
No. He's making fun of my car that I had in high school. It had a retractable roof. It wasn't quite a convertible.
A car?
Yeah.
Honestly, God, I'm not. I don't know what it is.
Well, first of all, dude, literally, it's called Le Car, which should tell you everything you need to know.
Is it French for awesome?
Yes. As a matter of fact, it was.
It's French for the car.
I'm upgraded now to a Mustang.
A whale's vagina.
Now. Yeah, I guess exactly. It is a whale's vagina.
Oh, you guys are.
I'm gonna cough up a lung.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about an exciting thing that Teddy, I'd love for you to come to. February 19th down at Revelton Distillery. It's a Saturday at 12:30. Tim and I are going to meet for the first time. We're going to record at the distillery. A buddy of mine that I went to high school with owns it, Rob Taylor. So we're going to invite a bunch of listeners and guests to come down, hop on. It'll be free range to be able to make fun of Tim. Nobody's going to want to come down there and make fun of me.
No way.
That's every episode.
I think people are going to be spending too much time fawning over my good looks, Chris, that they're going to have a hard time making fun of anything.
Yeah, okay.
Do you know who Tim kind of looks like? You kind of look like Ryan Fitzpatrick.
He does.
He looks like Ryan Fitzpatrick.
It's magic.
I have heard that before. I do want to point out that man is also a certified genius. So I just want to throw that out
there. And very athletic, which are two things that you are not.
Oh.
I'm very something, and no, I'm not. I have not been athletic for all. Dude, I thought I threw my back out doing a puzzle the other day. If that tells you. How many years ago my athletic prime passed me by. I once pulled a hammy bartending, not busy. So yeah. Yeah, so just like Fitzmagic.
That's it.
There you go. Come down, meet Ryan Fitzpatrick and Chris down at Revelton Distillery on February 19th. We'd love to have everybody.
Like that.
That'd be great.
Like that.
Yeah.
What day in the week is that? Is that Saturday?
It's Saturday during the day.
Awesome.
It's at 12:30 in the afternoon. So
perfect.
Yeah.
I like that.
Excellent.
Anything else?
Yeah, I was gonna say, Teddy, is there anything like now's kind of the chance in the podcast for you to plug whatever you want to plug. I know, like you said, you don't have your phone in front of you, so you have no idea what's going on in your businesses because you're that disconnected from, your ivory tower. But
to be fair, that was a podcast.
The Entourage show. And all those fancy guys.
as it's not mine. It is. I little M. The first game got canceled because of COVID. It was supposed to be early January, so I can get that. I know it's a cheaper ticket. You get like a beer and all kinds of stuff too. I don't want to misspeak on it because it is Drake, and it's a very private school, and Sean is very connected to them, so I don't want to misspeak without having the details in front of me. But that is something to plug. Listen, I know Chris has been friends with those guys for a long time. All those guys on the Chantra show, I know they follow this show. They love it. There's lots of retweets from that stuff too. You guys have been great. I didn't really know what to expect coming on here on exactly how it would be. I was familiar with the show. This was fantastic, though. This was very laid back. I don't know why I had a pregame shot. You guys weren't that scary.
No, Teddy, we appreciate your frankness. I mean, one thing Chris and I pride ourselves in is that we kind of get into, just honesty about how shit goes down, and things. None of us have it figured out. As much as Chris and I like to pretend like we know.
Hell no. And as my wife says, well, if you're wondering what he's thinking, just go ask him, because maybe that's my good and bad quality too. Is that maybe I should be less frank sometimes.
What fun would that be?
No.
But that's kind of what we like to do here, is just bring people on. We literally kind of treat it like, guys just sitting around a bar having a drink and bullshitting and talking about life. And if we can, go in depth and help people or see a different light or enlighten one of us, all the better, right?
No, I think the format's great. You guys are hilarious. If you ever guys run out of very famous people to interview again, like you obviously did this week, is why you asked Chris Williams. Those guys weren't available. Just give me a call. I'm happy to be your fill-in guy again whenever you need one.
Perfect. That sounds great. We've already classed this class up. I mean, you had that little hosting part. That was the best part of it.
Well, shoot, excellent. Chris, anything you plugged the Revelton thing? Anything else we need to plug before we get out of here?
That's it. Just thanks for listening. Subscribe more. Look, if you haven't listened to the Chantra show, look at that. You do a little bit on Ball Don't Lie too, don't you, Teddy?
We do, yeah. Ball Don't Lie. We're going to close up our season. We do a gambling podcast.
I should probably listen to that because I've lost a lot of money.
Yeah, well, not really. If you follow our NFL this year,
$25. That's what I've gambled.
I'm the non guy, more the host. Justin really, I mean, he lived in Vegas for a while. He's a shark. He actually had a bad NCAA this year, but he's around like 65% for NFL this year. He's been hot for the playoffs. He does really well. It's called Ball Don't Lie. Follow us on Twitter. We're gonna probably wrap up. We're gonna do a show this week and then one more. We only do football, and then we kind of post things throughout the year. His specialty is actually college basketball. That's what he specializes in, and he just kind of makes posts throughout the year doing that. We're kind of laissez-faire about that, but yeah, give us a follow. There's lots of good people. There's so many good podcasts and stuff in this Twitter sphere of ours. You guys are definitely one of the best. So, I mean, we'll do our part to help promote this too, because this is a fantastic format. You guys are freaking hilarious. And the fact you guys haven't met each other, that's just incredible, because you guys get pretty funny chemistry. So I can't wait to see that shit. So I have to go to, hey, so where am I going again this February?
Revelton Distillery. It's at 1400 West Clay Street in Osceola.
There you go, people. That's what we should do. See y'all there.
Perfect.
Look at that.
Iowa State just won in overtime, by the way. 84-81.
Oh, excellent. Well, thank you all, listeners. You guys have once again wasted another hour hanging out with the likes of us, and we're very grateful for it. As Chris said, please do us a favor and download, like, rate, subscribe, all of that good stuff. You can find us on whatever you're listening to now, frankly, or Spotify or Apple Music or Stitcher or
Stitcher.
I don't know.
RyanFitzpatrick.com.
I don't know how this shit works. Please check us out. Please check out the Tailgate Society at thetailgatesociety.com. As always, a lot of great sports, pop culture. I don't know. We complain about movies a lot on there. A lot of great content there. Find us at strength_old on Twitter. Cygrad Dad on Twitter. Tim Johnson MN. Supposedly Chris has a TikTok, which I'm afraid to check out for us. So go ahead and take a look at all of those. We appreciate every one of you guys listening. And with that, we will see you guys next time.
I don't want to get on the bandwagon. I'll burn that wagon down and join the band. Traveling troubadours, terrorizing street corners just to try to get some supper in our hands. Now I waited all my life to get this off my chest, scream bloody murder until someone understands that it ain't about the money, the drugs, or the women. I make this noise just because I can. And we'll all join in to that original sin.